Alright, so continuing with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, as I've already covered the 2003 remake, as well as the beginning from 2006, which was the prequel. I don't know if I said that already or not, but now we are moving on to the original, I was going to say timeline. There's not a consistent timeline in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise is absent, non-existent. No consistency whatsoever, but original series of movies. So everything except the remake, everything that takes place in, I guess, takes place in the same universe as the original film. And speaking of the original film, that's what we're talking about. 1974 classic, all-time great horror film. And this is the movie that when somebody says classic, or somebody is talking about the pantheon of all-time great horror films, this is the one that immediately pops into my mind. I've seen this movie just an ungodly amount of times. It's my favorite horror film of all time, and it has been since the first time I saw it. Most of you would probably think Halloween's my favorite. It's probably my second favorite behind this. But that's such a goddamn classic. And I really, to be honest, I'll take every opportunity and make every excuse I can to talk about it on this channel. It's just so great. Your story is very simple. The group of kids on their way to their grandfather's house, broken down, run down house, abandoned. It's really in the film that the house looks like it's ready to just collapse at any point. So you do definitely fear for the lives of the children while they're inside the house, but that's really the least of their concerns for the rest of this film, as they run into a family of cannibals who, you guessed it, want to eat them. So yeah, it's such a classic film, and I think this came out before the big slasher craze in the 80s. With Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Burning, The Prowler, and a lot of those movies I don't care for, like The Prowler and My Bloody Valentine. Those are movies I probably should like, but I don't, because they're not interesting to me. This, to me, is absolutely interesting. The opening credits and the opening scene, where you hear the shovel hitting the dirt, and then you see the corpse, this mangled, fucking chewed up corpse on the tombstone, and then you go right into the opening credits. That right there nails the atmosphere and the tone of this film. And it's funny because Tobe Hooper thought that he was making he claims that he was making a dark comedy when making this film, and I honestly just have trouble believing that. There's no way. When you watch this film, there is no vision of a dark comedy in this film whatsoever. So I don't know if he just said that to get a rise out of whoever, or to get a rise out of the fans, and he claims that this is the film he thought he was making when making this movie. I don't buy that, man. I just don't buy it. I don't watch this film and see where there's any attempt to make this a dark comedy. It's a straight up fucking terrifying horror film. But it is what it is. If he was going out to make a dark comedy, he failed miserably, and it ended up being the birth of the greatest horror film ever made. There's just no, I don't believe that for a bit. But the way the film is just shot, it's shot in this raw, visceral, documentary-esque type of way that really adds to the tension. And that's kind of a put-off for some people, and I get it. They want the more cinematic approach that the remake offers, and that's perfectly fine. Like I said, I've recently rewatched the remake, and it's good. It's a good movie, and I'm not as sour on it as I used to be. But this is my preferred Texas Chainsaw Massacre iteration for those reasons, as well as there is not really much of a reliance on gore as much as there is implied violence in the theater of the mind. And I have noticed that the attention span of modern audiences have shrunken, and they don't want what I consider, and this is gonna, I don't mean to sound like an elitist when I say this, this is my personal opinion. This to me is true horror. For example, the scene where Kirk stumbles into the house and Leatherface comes up and pops him in the head with a hammer and then drags him through the doorway and slams the door shut, and then you don't see anything else after that. That to me is they could have very easily shown you him getting thrown up on the table and then fucking cut up with a chainsaw. They could have showed you that, but to be honest with you, what I came up with in my imagination was probably a lot more frightening than anything they could have showed you. And that was just the magic of that era of horror in the 1970s. And as we know, in the 80s and the 90s, they kind of did away with that. And there's exceptions, don't get me wrong. But in the 80s, it was all about the blood squirting at the screen, and all that's fine too. But it doesn't affect me as much on a psychological level as a film like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre would, the original. So they definitely play with the idea of the theater and the mind in this film. What you don't see is scarier. I firmly believe that. I am in firm belief of that. But the overall just quality of the film is absolutely excellent. We get really, to be truthful, I'm looking at my notepad here. Our characters, a lot of people, they don't like the characters in this film at all. I actually really enjoy all of the characters. I think the most shallow would probably be Jerry. He looks like your average, I don't know his style. I don't really know a whole lot about 70s style and whatnot, but he's probably the most shallow, just mainly because we don't have the most time spent with him. But a lot of people dislike Franklin, and I really don't get the hate for Franklin. I know that a lot of people find, and I get this, they find him annoying because of his constant bitching and complaining. I get it. But when you think about Franklin, you think about the day that he's had so far. I mean, the guy's in a wheelchair. He, throughout this film, has been dragged along on a trip that he obviously did not want to be dragged along on. He fell down a hill, which, really, to be truthful, that scene was actually kind of funny. He was attacked by a man in his own, in the comfort of his own van that he is, supposed to be, which that scene really pisses me off because nobody did anything to help him whatsoever. Personally, if I had picked up that hitchhiker, the minute that he would have been thrown out of the van was when he was talking about the, excuse me, holy shit, that snuck up on me, the slaughterhouse. And the minute that he takes the knife out of Franklin's hand, that would have been the minute that I'm pulling the fuck over and I'm telling that guy, get out of my fucking van. But that's why you really shouldn't pick up hitchhikers. I don't ever pick up hitchhikers whatsoever. It will never happen. There will never be a hitchhiker ass in the seat of my vehicle. Never. So you think about the day that Franklin's having, and then yes, okay, when they get to the house and they all just kind of fuck off into the house and leave him in the downstairs portion. I would honestly, I understand his complaints fully. I don't think that he should have taken it to the extent to blow raspberries and shit, because I think that that's relatively infantile, but that's neither here nor there. And then to make his day even better, he ends up getting hacked up with a chainsaw. So that's just a day that I think we should all aspire to have. Kirk is another character that I think he's a little bit shallow. And I'm not the biggest Kirk fan in the world because I feel like he could have done something to help Franklin when the hitchhiker attacked him. But he seems to me, he's just kind of like he has a guitar. He's a really weird, I can't really group him in with a clique or anything like that, but, or a group of people. I can't really, he's a hard one to describe. He's the one that ends up he's the first one to get killed. He's the first one to meet his demise, and frankly, to be honest with you, I didn't feel that bad for him because, I don't know if this was a normal thing in the 70s or not, but for those of you that are watching this that lived in the 70s, was it normal to just walk into people's house without any kind of permission? Or because there's been Jerry, Pam, and Kirk all just walk into people's houses without knocking, without any kind of... It's just, was that a thing back in the 70s? You just walk into people's houses? I'd like to know. But the chicks in this movie, Pam and Sally, very, very foxy ladies, by the way. They're gorgeous, both of them. I think they're the ones that get it the worst in this film. Because Kurt gets a hammer to the head, he's dead. Jerry gets a hammer to the head, he's dead. Franklin gets snuck up on in the woods and hacked up with a chainsaw, he's dead. Pam gets it really awful in this film because she's the one that's spotted in the house, runs out, and then is pulled back in, which I love that scene. It's absolutely fucking gut-wrenchingly terrifying, where you think she's going to get away, and then here comes this big man, grabs her, fucking drags her back in the house, and then he puts her on a fucking meat hook, and she sits and watches her boyfriend get mangled with a chainsaw. And then Sally just goes, even though she lives, she may as well just fucking died. Truthfully, if I'd have went through what she went through, I wouldn't have wanted to continue living afterwards. Because that's one of the most horrific things that I think anybody could ever experience. So, I definitely think the female characters get it worse than the male characters in this film. It's, that's the way I look at it. And my favorite thing overall about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, has got to be the three villains. We got Drayton Sawyer, who I don't think he's actually referred to Drayton until the second one, but I could be wrong. He's the gas station attendant from the beginning of the film, who makes the human barbecue. Now I'm starting to get hungry. I know somebody out there would probably think I'm not joking, but I'm joking, so, because you got to watch what you say nowadays. You also got Leatherface and the hitchhiker. And, you know, I don't want to say that there's a little bit of complexity to these characters, considering that Drayton Sawyer states in the film that he doesn't take any pleasure in killing. But I have a feeling that, you know, because, I mean, he is a psychopath after all. I would say that he probably does take great pleasure in killing. That's just one thing that's always made him interesting. He's like, oh, I don't take no pleasure in killing, but I think he kind of does. The hitchhiker, I think it was probably the hitchhiker's idea to start killing and eating people, because he is obviously the one that takes great pleasure in killing. I mean, I think, you know, when he's in the van with the kids, I think he was trying to express his love of killing the cows and maybe hinting at the idea of killing people. And I think that's when he started getting pissed off, because he saw that the kids were not sharing his love and his passion of the art of murder. So that's when he flipped out and took the picture and tried to set it on fire, and all that crazy shit started going down with Franklin getting his arm slit open. I think he's the brain of the whole operation. I don't want to say the brain, but I think he's the one that drives the killing. And then Leatherface clearly does not enjoy killing people. And this is where the sequels lose the magic of Leatherface, because Leatherface feels more like a person in this film, as opposed to just a fucking juggernaut killing machine as he becomes in the sequels. Leatherface he's a product of his environment. You could tell that he was forced into this, and he does not enjoy this whatsoever. When you get the scene where he kills Jerry, you know, you get that moment where he looks out the window, you know, he's like, where the fuck these guys coming from? And he sits there and he has this look of regret on his face. And truthfully, that's what I think made Leatherface Leatherface. Leatherface just he does not enjoy this at all, but he does it because I guess because he was brainwashed, and he had it nailed into his head that this is what you're going to do. And personally, I think the skin masks, this is just my personal opinion, I don't know if it's ever been confirmed, but I think that there's a couple different reasons why he may wear skin masks, and I'm strictly talking about the original film, that he either is trying to hide his guilt by wearing the mask, or he's trying to feel more like a normal person by wearing the faces of normal people, which is not normal whatsoever, but that, because Leatherface is not all there in the head either, that's just some thought-provoking stuff here. And I think that's what makes Leatherface interesting, is you can interpret this character how you want to interpret. Wherein, like I said, in the sequels, he's just another Jason Voorhees, he's just another Michael Myers. It's not interesting. But this original film makes Leatherface interesting, and people don't even realize, I don't think people realize, Leatherface can actually talk in this film. Where in the other films he becomes, like I said, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers. He doesn't talk. He's just a killing machine. So that's one thing I would have appreciated in the beginning in the remake, is if he spoke a little. But he, like I said, you don't hear him talk a whole lot in this film. And I honestly, I don't, if I could like maybe find a way to clean up the audio just a little bit, I wonder if what you can hear Leatherface, I wonder if you can actually understand what he's saying, or if he's just talking gibberish, because it's really hard to make out what it is he's saying in the actual film. I would like to be able to have somebody clean up the audio, and then I can listen and wonder, because I've always wondered, could you actually understand what Leatherface is saying? But we do know that he can talk in this film, so I don't understand why they never included that in the sequels. That's always pissed me off about it. But I think the ending is probably one of just the greatest endings in horror history, where you have Sally running away, she jumps out the window, and you see the stunt double that is clearly not Marilyn Burns. And it's funny, but you can let that go. And you know, the hitchhiker chases her, he grabs her, starts cutting up his back, or up her back, gets run over by the truck. Oh, Leatherface is not far behind, by the way. And then the truck driver helps Sally, which in 3D, they fucking, I don't know why they did this in the 3D film. They fucking show the truck driver hung on the meat hooks. That made me so mad, because that truck driver is gone. He's gone. He's not dead. I'm dreading getting to 3D, but and then she ends up hopping in the back of the dude's truck, driving away, and he's got Leatherface doing the dance in the middle of the street, and then cut to black. Movie's done. It's just a big fucking punch in the face ending, or a punch in the gut, however you want to look at it. It just ends. Like, there's no, like, satisfying, I don't want to say satisfying. Like, when I say satisfying, I don't mean like it's a bad ending. It's like, there's not really, like, it doesn't feel resolved. And I think that works for the film, because really true, pure madness has no resolution whatsoever. So I think that perfectly sums up the film. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What do you guys think of this movie? I know some of my subscribers have stated before that you actually don't like this movie at all. Perfectly fine, but if you guys like it, awesome, and I can't wait to get through the rest of this franchise, and hopefully I can do it as quick as possible, because some of these movies are really not that good, and I just want to get them over with. So what do you guys think of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm out. Peace.